Hello students, welcome to CMIS online classes, and this video is for class 9 chapter number 7. The name of the topic is diversity in living organisms. So what do you mean by diversity? Diversity means different forms. As we all know, we have different types of animals living in the world, in the earth. Some are small, some are big. Some live in water, some live in land, some fly. In the similar way, many organisms' fooding habits are also different. So in this chapter, we will talk about how we can study the living organisms of various diverse forms. So let's start the topic. So first of all, to study living organism, we have to classify it. As for example, as you all know, you people are in class 9, okay, and below your standards are class 8, class 7, class 6, and above your standards are in class 10, 11, and 12. So this classification of your classes depends upon your standard, the age, the development of the knowledge, etc. So similarly, to study living organism, we need classification. That means to divide various types of organisms. So what is the need for classification? So let's see. Living organisms have evolved on the earth millions of years ago. There is a vast variety of living organisms, as I discussed, and they show various variations. Number one point, we have some microscopic bacteria. They can be of size of 30 meter or less. Okay, that means what I mean to say, some microorganisms they can't be seen. Okay, they are not visible for our normal eye. We have to look them through our microscopes. Similarly, other animals like ants we can see. Then we have other animals like dog, cat, tiger, lions, which we can obviously see. So first of all, about their size. Then comes their lifespan. So some pine trees live for thousands of years. Even tortoise also, they live hundred of years. Say you can say 300 years. We can live up to 60 to 80 years, sometimes 90 also. And some insects, they, as for example, mosquito, they die within a few days. Even few organisms are there that they only live for few minutes also, okay, or few days. Okay, so some organisms are colorless or even transparent, we can say microorganisms, and some are brightly colored. You can say snakes also. Snakes are brightly colored. Okay, birds are brightly colored. Okay, to understand and study all these organisms is impossible in a random way. Okay, so if they are arranged into different groups based on the similarities in characteristics, then it is easier to study the different groups as a whole. As for example, we can study the birds, different types of birds according to the similarities of flying. Okay. Similarly, aquatic organism can be arranged according to the habitats in water bodies. Okay, so classification of living organisms are arranged in different groups on the basis of the similarities in the characteristics. Characteristics means the way of living, the way of eating, okay, eating habits, then their body structures, etc. Okay, and that is called classification of living organisms. Then we have how we have classified living organisms. So we have made different groups. The main characteristics which are considered for classification of living organisms into different groups are whether they are made of prokaryotic or eukaryotic cells. Okay, that means primitive and evolved. Okay, prokaryotic means primitive form of cells, and eukaryotic means the evolved form of cells. As we all know, we have evolved from a tiny cells slowly through million of years. So whether the cells occurs singly or they are grouped. Okay, as for example, we have example of single cell. We can say amoeba. Okay, some bacteria are there. Then we have paramecium. Okay, so similarly other groups, other organisms, they are more than two cells. Okay, and they live in an indivisible group. Whether they are produce their own food, that means whether they are producers, as for example plants. Okay, but there is a process called photosynthesis by which plant make food. But some plants, they don't photosynthesize. Like mushroom, they don't photosynthesize, but they have been considered in plants. So we have different forms. Okay, so others get their food from outside, like consumers. Consumers means we people. We people depend mostly on plants and other living organisms for food. So of the organism which produce their own food, plants, what is the level of organization of the body? So they have different types of organization. Some are angiospermic, gymnospermic. Okay, we will discuss later on. So of the animals, what is the level of organization of the body and what are the special organs and their functions? That also depend. As for example, for water animals, you can say fish. Fish have a special organ for breathing in water bodies, gills. Similarly, whale, that is also an habitat of water, but they don't respire through gills. They have special organs. Okay, so the characteristics used for classification of plants will be different from the characteristics used for classification of animals. So we have different classification of animals and different classification of plants. Okay, because as we know, plants can make they can produce their own food by some process, and whereas animals, they don't produce their own food. They depend on animals for food. Then we have how, according to evolution, the classification has been done. So present day complex living organism have evolved from the earlier simple forms due to changes in their body design over million of years. As for example, we can say we have been evolved from monkeys or apes. And what are the peculiar characteristics? Okay, they bend, they walk with four legs. Okay, and they have tails. But do we have tails? That means due to evolution, our tails has been reduced because we don't use them. Okay, so the body design of living organism are gradually changing due to change in environment, and they need to adapt themselves to the change in the environment. Okay. So as I told, an example of the monkeys, they mostly are arboreal animals or arboreal habitats, and they get their food from the trees. So to do some activities, they have tails. But as we evolved gradually, slowly, we don't need the tail, and due to that our other organism develop, like the way of talking, communicating. Okay, so some group of organisms have ancient body designs have not changed much during evolution and have simple forms and structure. So these organisms are called primitive or lower organisms. Okay. So it's not that all the living organisms they evolved. Some evolved, which have that ability to evolve, and others remain the same. So some organisms have acquired the body design relatively recently and have complex forms and structures. And these organisms are called advanced or higher organisms. Okay. So let's move to another part, that is the hierarchy of classification. That means, what are the hierarchy? So living organisms have broadly classified into 5 main kingdoms. They are, what are they? We have Monera, number 1. Number 2, Protista. Number 3, fungi or fungus. Then Plante, as means plants. Animalia, that means animals. And each kingdoms have further classified into smaller other hierarchy groups, like subgroups are there. First of all, we have kingdom. If Animalia is a kingdom, we have a phylum. Lower to that, then we have class, then we have order, then we have family, then genus, and at last species. But species is not the last. We have subspecies also as the evolution are going on. So by arranging organism on the basis of hierarchy and characteristics into smaller and smaller groups, we arrive at the basic unit of classification called species and subspecies. So what do you mean by species? Is group of organisms which are similar enough to breed and perpetuate. That means they have similar life forms. As for example, as I told the example of monkeys or apes. So monkeys, apes, we all are in same family of Animalia or animals, but our genus are different. Okay, so apes are of different genus, monkeys are of different genus, then we have langurs, they are also of different genus. Okay, so after that, species has been classified. So let's move towards another part. So first of all, organisms has been classified into prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Prokaryotes, as I said, is a primitive form. They have not evolved, they have not developed themselves, and those are called monera. Then we have eukaryotes. In eukaryotes, you have unicellular organism and multicellular organism. In unicellular organism, we have protista. That means according to cell, types of cell, those protista have cell wall, whereas in multicellular organism, you don't have cell wall. Now let's talk to protista. Again, has been divided into two parts. Do not perform photosynthesis. As I told, all plants do not perform photosynthesis. Like fungi, I can give example of mushroom, and able to perform photosynthesis. That means various other green plants. Okay. Then we have multicellular organisms without cell wall, that is animals. Okay. So let's move towards monera. What do you mean by monera? As I told, they are prokaryotic. That means primitive type. Unicellular, do not have a definite nucleus. They don't have nucleus. May or may not have cell wall. Means some have cell wall, some do not have cell wall. And the mode of nutrition is autotrophic or heterotrophic. That means they can produce the food, or they can survive through other environmental factors. Various examples, we have bacteria, they are monera. Then blue-green algae, okay, it is mostly found in ocean bodies. Okay, cyanobacteria, it is a type of bacteria, and mycoplasma. They are all unicellular organisms that are mostly found in water and through water it can affect our body, not also negative or positive. Some bacteria are beneficial also. It's not that bacteria are always harmful. They can be beneficial also. As for example, E. coli bacteria. They are very much helpful, beneficial for our body, and that helps us to digest a food. Then we will move towards, then we have how we have classified living organisms. So we have made different groups. The main characteristics which are considered for classification of living organisms into different groups are whether they are made of prokaryotic or eukaryotic cells. Okay, that means primitive and evolved. Okay, prokaryotic means primitive form of cells, and eukaryotic means the evolved form of cells. As we all know, we have evolved from a tiny cells slowly through million of years. So whether this, then let's move towards fungi. They are eukaryotic, unicellular or multicellular. All. They do not have chlorophyll and cannot prepare their own food and are heterotrophs. Okay, that means they cannot prepare their food, so they are not producers, so they depend on other environmental factors to perform, to survive, to consume some form of energy, and they are called heterotrophs. So they use decay organic matter as food and so are called saprophytes. Okay, so those organisms which uses decayed organic matters that are mostly found in land, okay, in the kachras, the peel of what you can say, plants, okay, the leaves of plants, then you can say the dead bodies of various other organisms. And the example we have lichens. Okay, so example yeast is also the Aspergillus, penicillium, it is a form of bacteria, Agaricus, lichens, etc. So these all are the example of fungi. Look, in lichens, the lichens are attached to the branch of a tree, okay, and they get the nutrition from these branches only. Then we have fungus. They depend on organic matter for their food. Then let's move towards another part, that is Plante, that means plants. They are multicellular eukaryotic having cell walls, that means plant have cell walls as already discussed. So they use chlorophyll for photosynthesis, as they are green and they have chlorophyll present inside them. So all plants are included in these groups. Okay, so they are divided into how many groups? Again, 5 groups. They are thallophyte, bryophyte, pteridophyte, gymnosperms and angiosperms. So these all are the type of plants, and we will discuss these 5 groups in our further discussion. Then we have at last Animalia or animals. They include all organisms which are multicellular. Even plants also are multicellular, but they are producers. They can prepare their own food. Without chlorophyll and cell wall. All animals, that means animals, they don't have chlorophyll. They can't produce their own food. They have to depend on other plants and animals for food. And they don't have cell wall. Animals don't have cell walls in their cell. They are heterotrophs. Okay. So animals are also divided into groups. So we have divided animals into 10 groups: Porifera, Colentora, Platyhelminthes, nematodes, Annelida, Arthropoda, Mollusca, Echinodermata, Protochordata and Vertebrata or vertebrae. And this classification only we can differentiate various types of animals that are without chlorophyll and without cell wall. Okay, so in this session we talked about the need of classification, then different classification of living organisms, like Monera, Protista, fungi, Plante and Animalia, animals. So in our next session we will talk about different types of plant groups. Okay, so this was all for the first part, and thank you.